Max says he was willing to overlook this as he thought Corpse would stay his friend, but he didn't, ignoring his request for a collab. This meant that apparently Corpse owed him a favor.
But I let you do it because I thought you were gonna be my friend like you used to be. And then you stopped talking to me immediately after you were done using me. Yeah. So
you guys didn't know.
do me the fucking favor this time and talk about something besides yourself for once. It will give you a good look, I promise.
Max concludes by declaring he will continue even if it means antagonizing every other creator on the platform. This is followed by a shot at Tommy C showing a clip of his reaction to the previous call to action. He then commands his audience to overwhelm social media with the hashtag #PickASnapYouTube, demanding they choose between Max or pedophiles.
I want you to pace this bitch until the world is nauseous from looking at it. I want you to drown out every trending topic so that even something like Spider-Man looks like a microscopic speck of dust compared to us. And tonight, you two will choose.
No, get off of that.
Or suffer.
All the camos.
I mean, let's just make this clear right away. That false dichotomy is complete bullshit. The idea that because they took his video down for nudity, they were siding with creeps is idiotic. It only serves to poison the well, implying that if you didn't side with him, you supported actual criminals. The narrative was still on Max's side at this point, but it wasn't nearly as effective as his last. It received 1.5 million views, but was also met with large amounts of criticism, showing significant disagreement. Charlie would end up voicing support for Max while also pointing out the same issues many have with his approach.
I thought Mama Max did a great job in his video until the end, where he turned it into a you're either with us or with the pedophiles type thing. I think it's counterproductive and doesn't really accomplish anything at all. The hashtag, I feel like
Version.
find that silly and just write it off right away.
This was only heightened when it was discovered that Max had misled some of the YouTubers that agreed to participate. They weren't informed about the true nature of the video until it was published. I spoke about this issue myself with him directly back in 2021. Well, that's the question. That's my issue, right? Like, you know we wanted to shoot on YouTube. You sent me a message basically being like, you want to shoot on YouTube? And it's like, I mean, I want to shoot on YouTube. You know, I'm not really mad at you about it. Like, I probably should have inquired more, and I'm not even really mad that my part was in this video because, I don't know, it's whatever. But, you know, it wasn't just shitting on YouTube. You know, it was saying that YouTube inadvertently protects files and trying to like start a movement on YouTube. I guess I guess the thing is, like, why even include all of us in the video if we don't have the same issues and they don't even relate? Like, mine had nothing to do with files.
Right.
This is where Tommy C comes back into the forefront, live streaming his reaction to Max's new video. Tommy hadn't seen the video yet, but was already critical due to the hashtag and his previous call to action. That while showing a tweet on screen from comedian Vito Gesualdi, who replied to Max, "I picked files."
When you make a presentation in this manner, in a serious issue, you lose credibility.
Max was watching Tommy closely as
What a
within
quick
5
appreciate.
minutes he attempted to join the call, only to be turned down.
Tommy, I just was informed Mama Max is interested in talking, and he's in waiting call right now.
Well, he's gonna have to wait, and I'm going through this nightmare. I'm not willing to debate this right now.
It was even worse than expected, with Tommy making a mockery of the entire narrative.
We don't like your files.
Wow, that's Jesus Christ! What a daring and brave take! How did you come up with that?
Vito joins in midway through, with the two flabbergasted over what they felt was a transparent clout grab.
You know what he's doing right now? Let's just call it what it is. These are fucking scare tactics. No, it's scare tactics. He's trying to force.
He's pinky.
If you really think about it. Listen, you long-haired Keanu Reeves-looking motherfucker. Why don't you agree with me or be a yo?
That's why he has the question, children or files. Well, I guess I gotta pick one of the two.
Do you know what this makes it look like? This is a clout grab. This is not about kids, and this is probably the best circumstantial evidence out there. This whole thing, this whole video from the top down is a bunch of bullshit. This is a YouTube shit.
But easily the most memorable part is when Tommy finds out he's featured in the video for his initial reservations.
I get it. You know what? You know what that tells me? He didn't send me the fucking DM because he knew I would fucking see right through it. He knew I would see through it. He knew I would expose him, and he figured putting me at the end. This is a threat. This is a fucking threat. Hey, jerk off. Go f yourself. You're a fucking liar. You're a piece of shit. You're not a journalist. You don't give a. You're a clout chasing, just another wannabe piece of shit. You don't give a shit about kids. I actually have to. You phony, you fraud, you fake.
Night Docs called in after this rant to defend his friend's video. Needless to say, it didn't go very well.
So he definitely has a much more hardline approach or a viewpoint, I think, than I do personally. But I mean, I do support Max.
Silly,
You support
Right?
Max. What are you supporting him on?
So what I think he would rather see is a situation where people who are trying to protect people that can't protect themselves, like children, don't have to fight the YouTube system.
Yeah, but he's really just talking about other YouTubers and his own content.
Right.
He doesn't
But
give
this is
any
this
specific
is-
examples where kids tried to speak out about their molestation or anything and were shut down by YouTube.
Can't he just re-upload it without that butt shot? Like, didn't they just say we don't like this one little thing? Like, can't he
And that's a
still
good
put
point.
it up?
And that's a great point. But
Yeah,
the
it's a great
problem
point.
is
It's a
that
point I
YouTube
made to
has-
Max's face a year ago. And then, interesting enough, it took almost 13 months to do the same video over again and do
So
the
Tom,
same
you brought up a
stunt.
point earlier.
What pedophiles has he caught?
The one that he's referencing that got removed.
Mm-hmm.
He caught. I don't know his real name. But
Where did he? Oh, really? Do the police know his real name?
so the problem too is that
Nobody. Just say it. Nobody. Exactly.
This controversy ended much like his last, with the video never being reinstated. Max did come out with a win, receiving a YouTube partner manager, but he once again had to re-upload the video. Max appeared on several podcasts to address the controversy in the aftermath, and the emerging criticism was not forgotten by Max, who held a grudge against his detractors. He had a particular disdain for Tommy C, with his resentment materializing in his next video. But there's a few things we should discuss about that video first. On August 5th, 2022, Max uploaded Wayne.exe. This is what happens to a creep on TikTok. The video is about a 60-year-old predator named Wayne Barnett, active on both TikTok and IMVU. Max was able to catfish Wayne, even getting him in a voice call with his webcam on. This is notable because Wayne had already been caught in 2019 and was on probation until 2023. In spite of this, no action was taken after Max had sent his evidence to the authorities. This leads Max to direct his audience to harass the Butler County Sheriff's Office. He even calls out the sheriff by name.
After submitting everything to the police months ago, including evidence we are not allowed to show you, we still have not heard back from them, and Wayne is still active. Let Sheriff Richard Jones know we do not appreciate them. In the event that they do not make an adequate response, there really is no other option, is there, children?
I don't know what this was supposed to achieve, but it was unsuccessful. Wayne is allegedly still active to this day, evident by Max's own subreddit. It should have been easier given that Wayne was already in the system for a 12-year-old. But as Max points out, his investigations didn't exactly have a great track record.
With every report I have ever made, there seems to be an overwhelming silence from those we call authorities, and it has all ever amounted to only a few arrests, which does not even guarantee an incarceration. As wise men once said, fuck the police.
Nevertheless, this was all overshadowed by the chapters that preceded it. The video begins with an update to Pick Aside YouTube, with much of it directed towards his critics. Max first parodies Tommy C's stream with a segment called Mommy Z.
Hi, you're live on the air.
I pick the files.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I absolutely agree. Thank you so much for calling in. So without further ado, let's get right into the video.
Max then shows excerpts of his reaction before implying that having Vito and Mr. Girl on a show meant he supported PDF files. Bear in mind, Mr. Girl only called into Tommy's show for about 15 minutes. Rather than call Tommy out by name, he does what a non-clout chaser would do and refers to him by his sub count.
What I did not foresee, however, was when you
Как горело лоудинг,
accidentally actual files along the way. Please teach me your ways, washed up commentary channel number 46,853. Anyway, I see a simple conversation is asking for too much when you're busy inviting more pedophiles onto your show.
Now, Max is sure to clarify he wasn't calling Tommy a PDF file, just Vito, apparently.
That's not me calling you a file number 46853. That's me calling you
But his audience got a different message. It's one thing to accuse a platform of protecting PDF files, it's another to accuse a small streamer in front of your entire creep hunting audience. Flooded with comments accusing him of being a creep.
Oh my God.
He responded in a stream calling Max an egomaniac before revealing something he had never talked about. Tommy was in fact a CSA survivor himself and had every right to criticize Max for the way he was making videos.
I'm a victim of such challenges. I was blessed to have a babysitter, and I got lucky. I had a couple drinks with my neighbor across the street a couple months later when I was a teenager. He was by the same guy. Neither of us have the balls, because we were children, to say anything. By then it was just too late. So I get really, really upset when stuff like this happens. Don't believe me? Think I'm just saying it? Well, Dave knows about it. He's known about it for like 10 years. And he's one of my closest artists. And if you want to sit there and I don't care, say that make why would a guy like me running a comedy show just up to some the most offensive, I fully expect, no jokes, and then yeah, I don't care. I care more about people not taking me seriously than making fun of me and less.
Max had basically re-victimized Tommy by projecting into the harassment of his fans, who were now baselessly calling a CSA survivor a creep. Max never responded to this publicly beyond a half-hearted attempt to squash the beef on his live stream.
I don't want to hold dirt on anyone. Like, even people like Tommy C. I honestly just wanted to, like, you know, clap back. Because, you call me on stream. I think I deserve to, slap you a little bit. I don't want to, like, fight him forever. I mean, I think he's very funny. I don't think he's a bad person. I just think sometimes the way he covers stuff feels like he takes everything at face value and just runs with that. And I would like him to be more thorough, because I think he has a lot of potential, because he is very charismatic and he has an audience who would die for him, and that reminds me a lot of myself.
Oh, and I haven't even mentioned the QR codes yet. Yeah, so Max would hide QR codes throughout the video with messages for Tommy C. In one of them, Max admits to cherry-picking the clips of Vito and Mr. Girl. Don't let this small section of the live stream fool you. I cherry-picked it, but that's not why I'm showing you this, even though it is peculiar why he treats pedophiles more friendly than someone who hunts them. The reason I'm showing you this is because hashtag 46853 has a pattern of giving a platform for creeps to defend themselves. In another of them, he says something that will have very strange implications as we progress further into the video. I've said this before publicly many different times. I don't do this for the kids. I do this because I like hurting people. On July 23rd, 2023, a channel by the name of Magnetar released an almost hour-long expose on Max. It served to platform some of Max's ex-girlfriends who had come out against him. The names featured would be more fleshed-out stories from Lucy and Olivia, who had voiced their accusations prior, in addition to a new victim, Haley, Magnetar's girlfriend. Haley is the only one we'll be discussing at length, so her story appears to be the most credible. It's also unique in that she never dated Max, alleging a one-sided obsession that spanned several years. She gives us quite a bit of history on Max, starting all the way back in 2013. They met in high school and were close friends. Haley claims the first red flag came after she mentioned her sister's upcoming birthday party. Max apparently showed up uninvited, with Haley unaware he even knew where she lived. At said party, he wouldn't engage with anyone besides Haley, standing well away from everyone. This led her to cover for him by lying and say she had, in fact, invited him. Haley recalls that Max wanted to become a firefighter after school and spoke about it often. It was apparently some kind of code word, which he refused to explain.
After prom, Max started texting me more than usual. He kept saying he wanted to be a firefighter and that his calling was to be a firefighter. And of course, I would ask him why he wanted to go into the profession, but Max would deflect and not tell me directly. He also said that firefighter was a code word for something else. I asked him several times over the next few months what it meant, but he would just laugh at me and change the subject.
In August of 2014, Haley got her driver's license and suggested he stop by after work. He took her up on this and they drove around town. Eventually, she took him to an inlet near a lake where they sat and talked for a bit. Max brought up his dream of becoming a firefighter, which led Haley to ask about it again. But this time, he simply handed her a notebook. Haley opened it at home and found, allegedly, a violent plan to get rid of her actual boyfriend.
Most of the notes were similar to diary entries, like what happened that day, things like that. And he started describing, our friendship, him and I. He talked about how I woke up every day, how he looked forward to seeing me, all of those things. He then brought up Dustin, who was my friend.
So we show.
He didn't deserve to have me. He had written out a whole plan on how he would get him out of the picture. I don't fully remember the exact details and don't want to speculate. I remember it being thorough and violent, and it freaked me out so much that I just looked down.
To je to na.
She distanced herself, which should have been easy as she began attending university, but Max was persistent in her DMs, with Haley claiming she went along with it so as not to set him off. This led him to show up at her dorm room an hour-long drive, despite never telling him exactly where she was staying.
One night he showed up to my dorm room. I hadn't told him which dorm I was staying in, so it was strange. He found out where I was. When I asked him how he knew where I was, he laughed and never told me.
Haley broke up with her boyfriend Dustin that September and spoke about it to Max. This led him to try and reconnect further, which she was advised against by her current boyfriend Anthony, also known as Magnetar. Anthony told her to ignore him and cut off all contact. She refused, figuring she owed it to Max to let him off easy. Then one day, Max claimed to have arranged a meeting for her with her sister. It was for networking purposes as they were in the same line of work. Haley agreed, and Max calls her to tell her they booked a hotel room. He drives her to the hotel, where she finds out the meeting was a ruse, and he actually books the room for the two of them. This is where she alleges Max trapped her, disallowing her from leaving, and dismissing any excuses she threw at him.
He was standing like in the doorway and wouldn't let me walk past him. Anytime I tried to get out, he pulled my shoulders or my waist and he would just stop me. Honestly, I can't remember all of what happened that night, as I've done all I could to forget and move past this memory for years, but I do know that I was scared and that I was held against my will for hours. I remember being on my period and asking if we could go to the store so I could get tampons, seeing this as a way to get out of the room, but Max said no. I ended up sleeping without a tampon or a pad that night because he wouldn't let me leave. I remember telling him that I was talking to a new guy and that we had plans to watch a movie that night. Max said that I was lying about the movie date and continued talking about his mom and his sister. I eventually was crying so hard that I just fell asleep. I woke up to Max's hand in my shirt. He was like rubbing my back all the way down to where my shorts were, and his fingers were inside of my shorts.
Chill.
I rolled over and asked him what he was doing. He just kind of smiled, super creepy, and said that he was watching me sleep.
Max says she was finally allowed to leave in order to attend her chemistry class. After this, she didn't respond to any calls, texts, or emails for several weeks. He kept asking if she was okay, how her day was, but she didn't respond. Then, in December of 2014, she noticed his car parked outside her workplace. Haley called Anthony to pick her up, to which he told Max to leave them alone. This made Max so upset that he apparently started accusing him of taking her away from him. There was another incident where he showed up on campus, only to learn she was on winter break, followed by a couple of months where he actually left her alone. This is around when Max joined the military, doing basic training in Arizona. Max returned in March of 2015, sending vague and ominous messages.
Max didn't reach out to me for a month or so after this. He said he was in the military and doing basic training in Arizona. I told him that he should focus on that, and he didn't respond, so I figured that would be the last I'd ever hear from him, because I was pretty blunt about it. He started messaging me again in March of 2015 with really vague and ominous messages like, be safe, don't believe what they say. Anthony was also getting messages such as, keep her safe and you don't realize who you have, but we just ignored them and assumed Max was on his side.
Then, Max sent Anthony a message early one morning with a link to a video of him harming himself with the message, thanks Anthony. The video was also posted to Anthony's Facebook where he tagged himself. Anthony called for a wellness check on him, which ultimately led him to be discharged from the U.S. Army. Obviously, Max would survive this attempt, and he and Haley would never reconnect. That was despite his best efforts, trying to worm his way back into her life over the next 4 years. He even wrote a lengthy apology attempting to explain himself, admitting to a lot in the process. That includes admitting it was one-sided, as he was upset he never had the chance to be with her. Haley's accusations are easily the most convincing, with evidence for the others very lacking in comparison. I mean, that's without getting into all the different issues present in their individual testimonies. Regardless, the stories were all presented together, with the response being quite honest. Obviously, this would warrant a response, with Max releasing Believe All Abusers on July 29th, 2024. As far as debunking videos go, this one is actually quite good. Max starts off by showing his exes were conspiring to hunt him down, being in the same group chat to orchestrate it. He talks about every single one of his accusers, providing different pieces of proof to show their lies. With Paulina, he shows a litany of proof in text messages and screenshots showing a different side of the story. They show her trying to manipulate him by hurting herself. He also points out her obsessiveness, contrasting her own statements to show her story is basically one giant contradiction.
Here's Paulina after not seeing me for a while and telling me not to call the police. Here's Paulina threatening side. Here's Paulina threatening side. Here's Paulina threatening side. Here's Paulina threatening side. As you can see, I have been nothing but kind and sweet to her. And Paulina has continued and continued and continued.
What the fuck?
To harass me, my friends, my team, and my family. And anytime we try to defend ourselves, she says that we are the ones harassing her. So, as you can see, I was not the abuser in our relationship. She was.
With Olivia's story, he doesn't even really bother debunking it with proof. The full 30-minute call from before she joined the group chat was put in the description.
I broke up with you literally because you were boring, to say the least. We never hung out. We never did anything. We never saw each other. Even though we lived together, we never did anything. I was bored.
Why hold these conversations, though?
Because I'm so tired of seeing these freaking 13-year-olds making fan edits.
Got my button.
Who made me go fucking crazy because he was great. I'm being mad.
He brings up another ex of his, Sarah, who hadn't come out against him, although she was planning to at the time. He alleges she molested and abused him, showing a worrisome text message and an image of a bite mark as proof. Lucy was his first girlfriend, having met on Twitter back in 2016. With Lucy, he shows proof the way she presented her accusations was deceptive at best. For example, she claims that he groomed her when they met 2 months before she turned 18. He also shows proof she lied about her age at the time. While these other 2 cases did warrant being talked about, by far the most interesting part is the section about Haley. As noted, Haley's was the most convincing, not least of all because she provided quite a bit of proof. Max, in fact, confirms certain parts of the story, although he heavily pushes against a lot of the accusations.
Haley is not one of my exes. Haley has never abused me. Haley is a young woman that I fell for in high school and that I obsessed over during my time in the military. This is when I was 18. I made decisions that I obviously regret.
One of the key things he does is try to prove that he and Haley were a lot closer than ever implied. He confirms he was utterly obsessed with her, but suggests the reason for that is because she was effectively leading him on, as they would often do things that only couples tend to do, like cuddling, foot massages, flirting, etc.
True, you did not reciprocate them when your boyfriend was being nice to you, but when he wasn't being so nice to you, you would come to me for love and attention because that's all I gave you. And you talked to Days and talk in front of your grandma's house. We would go to the mall together and I would buy you things. We would stay out together multiple times. We would cuddle. We would tickle each other. I would give you foot massages. We kissed each other on the cheek on rare occasions. And there was even one time you let me draw on your body with markers. But that's just my side.
He confirms the existence of the notebook, but claims the violent rhetoric had a very different context. Max says it was actually about someone he believed was abusive towards her.
Now, I don't know if you're purposefully lying or just misremembering this, so I made a promise to her that I would tell the man who she claimed had been abusing her during our friendship. I will not go into detail to respect her privacy. The notebook was a gift. It was filled with raps I made about us two torturing him. She said I was a psycho, but she liked that about me. And this is me performing one of the songs in that notebook a few years later.
Here to fix the solving all the issues by solving you.
I never released the song out of fear she thought was something she would do.
According to Max, his code word, Fireman, was actually his rap pseudonym, with all of the violent writing in the notebook being lyrics against her alleged abuser, not her boyfriend. He tells us Haley never tried to distance herself from him at this point, and would in fact indirectly encourage this behavior by saying she liked the fact he was a psycho. When we fast forward to her in college, he claims they'd been in contact, and she actually had told him where her dorm room was. We fast forward again to the day Haley claimed he trapped her at a hotel. He explains she had known beforehand his sister couldn't make it, and she knew they'd be at the hotel room alone. Haley agreed to it as long as he didn't try to F her. The visit was far more amiable, with the two of them cuddling, tickling each other, and doing all of the sweet things that, a couple would do. They would also have a lengthy discussion about how she could try to get him fired from the military before he was shipped out to boot camp, which he was very eager to do, and they would meet to discuss this a few times afterwards. After he shipped out, Max claims they would continue regular correspondence, although the only proof he shows is a picture of him holding up his pinky to show he was making a pinky promise, as he says. At this point, Max tells us he hadn't actually been aware at all that Haley was dating Anthony, as whenever they hung out, he would claim they were just friends. He would eventually find out in boot camp, which is when he attempted to take his own life. However, his version of events once again differs, as he shows a supposed text from Anthony threatening Max to stay away from them in the aftermath of that video. In fact, he tells us the person who had saved his life was actually one of his army buddies. He also shows a supposed police report filed by Anthony and Haley. Since Max doesn't show much evidence of many of his and Haley's interactions, he decides to call in his sister as a sort of character witness, testifying that he and Haley were in fact incredibly close and casting more doubt on some of Haley's claims. As the conclusion rolls around, Max takes aim at what he considers his last unofficial accuser, Magnetar himself, taking time to make a rather egregious claim of his own. That's also while revealing his full name to the public.
Anthony Field, Haley's boyfriend, Magnetar. avatar on YouTube. The one who published this video on me.
The proof he shows is the testimony of a supposed victim who claims Anthony sent her nudes when she was underage. We also get testimony from Max's sister who affirms this anonymous account.
He graduated high school and he was an adult. He sent his videos to a high schooler who was around 14 years old. 15 years old.
It should be noted that we don't actually get any tangible evidence. In spite of this, Max is very confident in calling this man a creep, leaking his full name in the process. The video was overall received very well, amassing nearly 1 million views. It was good enough for people to not only dismiss the accusations, but levy the ones against Anthony. That included several massive YouTubers who trusted Max as both a friend and a credible hunter.
And then he showed a clip of his sister saying that the guy that's making that organized the video is sending like dick pics to 15-year-olds.
Me and my girlfriend were following the whole thing like crazy because it was like me and my girlfriend were like, we know Max, so it's like we just want to know this whole fucking thing. And me and her were blown away by the bombshell. Like, like, how can this?
Yeah.
It's like you gotta imagine, like, if you're the guy running these things, and you have a possible history.
I mean, to be honest, looking at it from his perspective, Max is this guy who obviously has a chip on his shoulder and hates this dude, right? And he's making videos about catching files. He's just scared that one of the videos will be about him. So he's trying to distract Max first.
We'll touch base with this later on because it would take a while for this video to be scrutinized at all. This is for the most part how the public left off the scandal back in 2022. Anthony gets destroyed and Max is still in a position of power. With the constant takedowns and apprehension to censorship, it shouldn't be surprising his income came largely outside of YouTube.
Max doesn't even try to monetize his videos anymore.
Max had a fan base of very loyal supporters, a massive number of whom signed up on his Patreon. This is where he would upload uncensored cuts of his videos, as well as other exclusive benefits. While it's a bit iffy to calculate his exact earnings at the time, given he hid both the number of patrons and the amount he was making, we can assume through third-party websites that he had well over 3,000 patrons at his peak. This was at an average of around $6 per patron. Of course, to maintain that loyalty, you would have to actually produce the content they were paying for. For a while, the only video he uploaded after Believe All Abusers was a song called Pray. It's pretty embarrassing, with the lyrics about how he wants creeps to perform oral on him. Behind the scenes, Max hyped this up
Hey,
by adding
Bambos.
a group chat claiming he was about to cause a stir. But other than that, he was mostly inactive until the summer of 2023. On June 6, 2023, Max uploaded How This Little Girl Makes $150 Billion Every Year. It was received poorly by fans, with many concluding it was just an advertisement for his Patreon. This was while asking for help reaching 10,000 patrons despite making little to no content.
Want to see the full trailer? Then you'll have to go to Patreon. Or find it somewhere else on the internet. But in the meantime, please enjoy this censored version.
Those who did watch the uncensored versions were disturbed. Max's rather tasteless recreations were present throughout his catalog. In Wayne.exe, he even shows himself rescuing a victim from her captor in a Hotline Miami cosplay. But the new video contains scenes depicting CSA using an actor and an actress. The choice was controversial, inciting backlash among his patrons. One user, named A Mushroom, began arguing with Max, stating they couldn't support him in good conscience. Max doubled down, stating he didn't care about feelings, and asked for proof it was harmful. The back and forth continued, with Max forced to address it in a Patreon-only live stream. The cracks were beginning to show, but for now, people gave him the benefit of the doubt. Interestingly, one of the uncensored versions was titled You Can't Hurt Me Trailer. It was uploaded to Vimeo on an account called Striker Films. You see, Max began using the alias Max Striker, even changing his legal name to Max Salvatorio Striker. Salvatorio is an Italian name that means savior. He wrote in his petition, I believe changing my name will allow me to be more successful, as it is the image I'm striving for rather than the image I've been living with. Also, I just don't find the names Ronald or Harris very interesting. On October 22nd, Mama Max approached a number of online personalities regarding his next investigation. The video was about a dangerous predator Max intended to expose to the masses. His messages were bizarre, with vague threats implying they could be creeps. He invited them to watch the video ahead of time under the condition they signed a non-disclosure agreement. Tell your friends that this video serves as my response to those who spread disinformation for profit. It will also stand as a cautionary statement for any of you involved in illegal or unethical behavior targeting minors. I would invite you to use your platform platform responsibly. Disseminating this video could be an opportunity for you to contribute positively. Max seemed quite upset by the fact that he was in his own mind blown off by all of these creators. So much so that he would actually make it a focal point of his eventual expose. On October 27th, he released a video titled Brainwash Your Favorite Influencers, Trigger Warning. The main purpose of this video was supposedly to tell the story of Shelby Spencer Slayton and her accusations against a man named Camden Gerard Davis.
On March 18th, 2016, Spencer, a 16-year-old
They're
girl
pieces
from
now.
Texas, mysteriously disappeared, lured by the illusion of joining a supernatural family as a vampire on some random corner of the internet. She actually found herself ensnared in a dangerous sex cult led by a child predator posing as a werewolf god.
He was apparently accused of kidnapping, assault, and attempted human trafficking.
The man had recruited hundreds of young children, subjecting them to sending CP, kidnapping, assault, and attempted trafficking. Almost 7 years later, Spencer and the other survivors shared their stories with me. This video serves as their scream for action against their perpetrator.
The rather glaring problem is that Max doesn't actually do much to expose the accused. Even though the video is supposed to be about victims of a cult, only 2 minutes of it actually explain their situation. No evidence is presented at all beyond the missing poster. Max spends more time comparing influencers to cult leaders and proposing bizarre hypotheticals.
Two extraterrestrial factions of the same primitive species are at war with each other. They are both guilty for spilling the blood of children. Based on the pattern among these species, who will win the war?
It primarily serves as a call to action to get the video in front of popular faces. Max once again calls out specific creators and invites them to talk about the topic. This list would include PewDiePie, Lex Friedman, Mr. Beast,
Joe Rogan,
Philip DeFranco, Ethan and Hila, Anthony Fantano, and of course, Corpse Husband. Each individual is given a personalized plea, like appealing to PewDiePie's newfound fatherhood. Max requests to be on Lex Friedman's podcast, and I guess Joe Rogan as well.
Joseph Rogan.
He thanks Philip DeFranco for his coverage of Pick Aside YouTube. The message to Fantano is about how the song playing is a banger. The corpse section is a generic plea ignoring the stunt Max pulled a year ago. And after that, there's a rather off-kilter section of Spencer addressing Camden's mother, revealing her full name to the public. The video ends with a claim that Spencer is seeking legal action against Camden, as well as a call-out for all of his other supposed victims to come forward.
The fuck?
He encourages viewers to use the
Talk
hashtag
you talk about
Max then
surprise,
states all
motherfucker.
proceeds of the video would go to victims, either to fund a legal battle or simply to help them in general. He also teases episode 1 of the Grant Hurtman podcast featuring Spencer. The video only netted about 100,000 views, a stark drop in his previous content. It received a mix of criticism and confusion, with most unable to follow what was even going on. This wasn't helped by the disclaimer stating it was fictionalized to some degree. The underperformance could also be blamed on the fact he rebranded his entire channel. Max renamed his channel to God Vault, with many fans assuming he was hacked. He wasn't, with the rebrand accompanied by this manifesto ranting about AI, geopolitical conflict, and global warming. His Patreon indicates GOD stands for Guard Our Daughters and Sons. The description offers a bit more insight, implying he made the trailer without Spencer's permission. Dear Spencer, I was hesitant when you approached me to document your story. By nature, I'm an autistic experimental filmmaker. Are you kidding me, bro? Yeah, me too, actually, me too. I'm mad autistic, dude. I'm an autistic experimental filmmaker with a propensity for igniting movements that many deem controversial. I'm not a journalist by any stretch, but you believed in my ability to do justice to your narrative. As I listened more, I found my own traumatic past reflecting yours in some of the most heart-wrenching ways. To that end, you'll find a few surprises that we can discuss after you watch it. I hope I did not let you down. Your friend, Max. The comments were filled with valid criticism, causing them to be turned off entirely. The next day, the aforementioned podcast was posted to a channel owned by Spencer. It's a 5-hour interview in which Max asks Spencer about the cult at length. Now, just a heads up, I'm not going to talk much about those accusations today, but I do have a separate video about the cult on the way, which will investigate the allegations against Camden Gerard Davis in depth. The biggest takeaway most had is that, once again, there were no receipts. While most believed her story, the interview doesn't provide actionable evidence. In fact, it may have hurt the cause, as part of her testimony includes admitting to several crimes.
Just one time he did have me lure a girl, like physically. We got an Uber and we picked this girl up from like 30 minutes away from us, and she was like 13 or 14. He kept trying to convince me to convince her to have sex with him.
There is one specific story I should bring up, for reasons that'll become obvious later. The podcast podcast isn't just Spencer's testimony, but 4 other survivors who provided written statements to be read out loud. The only other accuser without a pseudonym was Michaela Staten, referred to as Kai and Kayla. In her retelling, Spencer claims she left the cult after Camden allegedly SA'd Michaela behind a church.
Was there a specific moment that led to your decision to escape?
Kayla getting sexually assaulted by him. Like, literally in a ditch outside of a church.
Michaela reported this to the authorities, apparently providing photo evidence and a threatening conversation she had with him. In fact, she even claims Michaela had gotten pregnant, and when she told that to a detective, he outright ghosted her. Usually, Michaela would allegedly have a miscarriage. The video offered a harrowing and far more complete picture of how severe these allegations were. But they were just that, allegations, and you need a lot more to call someone an evil cult leader. And most people didn't have the time or ability to piece together the story from a 5-hour podcast with no proof. It didn't get the attention Max desired, as the next day he went live with Spencer reacting to the video.
Influencers, even if they're not destructive, being inactive to an injustice, I feel is in of itself harmful. People don't care until it affects them. And I know this is but if they don't cover it, I'm going to make it affect them.
On November 11th, Max released This Is What Happened to Mama Max. The video starts with Max addressing the overall change in his content. He explains his journey from the early days of his channel back in 2016. Eventually, his productions turned more serious when he found his calling making predator hunting content. That's when Max gives a rather startling admission. He reveals that every single hunt video, while fundamentally based in reality, took place in a larger fictional universe where such behavior is normalized.
The Mama Max universe was a cautionary tale that takes place in the dystopian
Нахуй тогда.
where child predators have seized global power, exploiting the digital landscape to entrench their rule. Rising from the ashes of a society that failed to protect its most vulnerable, the children emerged. A covert network of vigilantes inspired by the style of Hotline Miami. They are now hunters of the most secret children.
Amusingly, he describes this as too obtuse for YouTube, complaining it led to a steep drop in viewership. He even goes on to say the YouTube audience may not be ready for this kind of content. On that note, he also defends himself from accusations of clout
не
chasing
играй.
by saying that if
Я
you
состал
really
ты
want
лобы, не
to
играй,
use,
вето.
it's a terrible grift for YouTube. He does not bring up his Patreon numbers, mind you, which, while diminished at this point, was still netting him up to $9 grand a month. He then responds to comments that call him either a grifter or point out he wasn't treating the situation seriously enough. For example, this is his response to a user accusing him of using the topic as window dressing to boost his relevancy.
Comparing crucial issues like child abuse,
Ну давай.
and pedophilia as window dressing for YouTube relevancy says far more about you than you realize. Your choice to overlook these details and instead diminish this work is a telling revelation of your own character.
For the most part, this is the general stance he takes throughout the video, using the seriousness of the topic as a shield from any and all criticism. He defends the overt flashiness by saying it was the only way he thought it could get some attention. He argues that doing things the regular way, by showing all the facts, simply wasn't enough. It necessitated cult-like tactics to get people to connect with the message. This is also how he justifies calling out specific YouTubers. Max argues that if they had any sort of moral backbone, they would push his video unconditionally. He shames all the YouTubers he reached out to in private, albeit with the courtesy to not name anyone in particular. But that was very short-lived, as Max became agitated behind the scenes.
Max, have you personally reached out to any YouTubers about this? Yes, I have reached out to multiple. They are all apprehensive. I don't blame them.
То новый позже духи этой короче.
You should be covering the story regardless, because it could make a huge impact and potentially save children's lives. And I've made that clear with them, but they are apprehensive. My current solution is make the follow-up video and discuss it further in a way that's more accessible. Talk to Charlie. Deadmau5, I did talk to Charlie. I will still be talking to him.
This can be seen in his DMs to Charlie, which he leaked in his next video. The first shown is dated October 23rd. It seems Charlie turned him down, stating he was moving away from React content. Max acknowledges this before adding him to a group chat. There is absolutely no expectation for him to react or cover the video. Max bothers him for several days, begging him to review the video. The brainwashing vid is released on October 27th. Then on November 6th, Max tags everyone stating the video didn't meet expectations and they didn't make enough to start a full legal suit. I've sent to the survivors my own income to hopefully make up for this. Max also sends Charlie a DM asking for a 15-minute call. Before long, he was shaming them for their silence to get them to attend his meetings.
Hello, my name is Mw3. I'm a filmmaker dedicated to empowering children. You are invited to a mass call to
idea Max didn't expect them to cover the story was a lie, evident by a DM he sent to Nicholas Diorio around the same time. Your response, or lack thereof, will not go unnoticed. We are determined to be heard, and we hope to count you among those who stand for what is right. Max was gearing up for his next big stunt, which came just 4 days after his last. It was on November 25th, 2023, that Max uploaded, "This is the cancellation of all time, Penguin Zero, #WeAreReal." In addition to the title, the thumbnail put Charlie front and center. The video begins with
To
Max
da,
helpfully
cheer up to
explaining
that.
it was clickbait for another call to action. He follows this with a brief segment mocking the outrage surrounding Sniper Wolf and juxtaposing it against what he deems a far more serious issue. While Max claims it isn't a call-out, he does list several criticisms against Charlie. Footage of his channel plays in the background while Max rants about the apathy of creators. There's even a section where he shows all of their DMs before looking down solemnly as the survivors flash on screen. This is all preceded by a quote stating his silence would lead to the triumph of evil.
The only thing necessary, triumph of evil.
Following this montage, Max addresses Charlie directly while claiming he's not trying to corner him. This is largely what he spends the last 10 minutes discussing, once again distracting from what he supposedly cared about.
Charlie, I hold on to the hope that you'll act in accordance with the integrity and goodness I've always known you to possess. I realize that centering this part of the video around you might feel imposing, and for that I extend my sincere apologies. To offer a gesture of goodwill, here are my dogs, hoping it brings a moment of joy amidst these heavy topics.
Max finally provides evidence in this video, but they're spliced in between the borderline seizure-inducing edits and flash on screen for only a second. They're also completely without context. The montage includes a picture of Spencer and Camden together, as well as some seemingly innocuous posts. They do very little to further our understanding of the case, but hey, at least it's something, I guess. He also plays a video with the survivors, including both Spencer and Michaela.
My name is Spencer, and I am a survivor of the leader of a destructive cult that has victimized hundreds of minors. This video is our stream trash.
The video drags on for a while, adding really nothing worth of substance to the overall investigation. Pretty much the universal impression from creators and viewers alike was that it was just another call for attention. In the end, this video was received the worst, with an overwhelmingly negative comment section. Everyone from CSA victims to supposed lawyers came out of the woodwork to criticize him, pointing out the over-reliance on flowery prose and the obvious attempt at emotionally blackmailing Charlie. This continues even into the description where he admits to using ChatGPT-4 and cult psychology. Whatever goodwill he had from over the years was quickly evaporating, as even his own fans were skeptical. I mean, we're a whole 3 videos in with over 50 minutes of content, and Max had still done absolutely nothing to explain the whole story or provide actual proof. The video inevitably reached Charlie, who was asked on stream to address the situation. He was not impressed, calling the move slimy and giving a brief explanation of why he stopped replying in the first place.
We talked like a month ago about like what he was working on in his investigation, and then apparently when I had COVID, he messaged me a couple times and I never saw it, and now he's taken that as me ghosting him and ignoring his very important mission, and it really rubs me the wrong way. He's jumping to the most extreme possible explanation for me not seeing it, which is really fucking cringe. I had COVID and I barely used Discord in the first place. It was a miracle I ever even saw his message to begin with, and then I spent 12 days not doing anything online in bed, and during that time apparently it changed his whole framing of the video in order to make it like a Trojan horse of cancel critical because he didn't respond to my messages.
After getting backlash over the title and thumbnail, Max renamed it Reacting to the Reactions of SS Sniper Wolf's Actions. But even though the criticism was getting harsher, he once again doubled down on his method of investigation. On the 26th, Max fired up a live stream titled Fight Me to argue with his chat in the comment section. Most of the criticism centered around his targeting of Charlie, as well as his dismissal of the Sniper Wolf drama. Bear in mind, he had just doxed and went to the house of another YouTuber. He angrily clarifies that while this was, in fact, important, in comparison to trafficking around the world, it should hardly be a blip on the radar.
And people are still bringing it to, oh, but drama. Oh, but Charlie harassment. Oh, but Sniper Wolf, let's defend the Sniper Wolf mass coverage. How about we take it to human trafficking and global child exploitation, guys? How's that sound?
This is largely what the stream boils down to, without much in the way of substance. Max continues to insist on the importance of his mission, while dismissing any idea he wasn't going about it correctly. He went live again a few days later, this time with Spencer. On this stream, there was a little more of a dialogue going on, with people coming in and out to voice their criticism. He speaks to a YouTuber named Larix, who grills him on trying to guilt trip Charlie into speaking out. Max defends himself by claiming it wasn't his intent, and that he only singled him out because he likes him.
I think you're trying to force him in a sense, or try to like use this moral superiority, the guilt trip him into covering it.
At least I have tried.
Larix also mocks aspects of Spencer's story to her face, like the fact that she sincerely believed Camden's supernatural image.
Wait, so what did he convince you to be?
He convinced me that I was a vampire, and then later on, after he quote-unquote broke up with me, I was a hybrid of a werewolf and a vampire.
Oh, a hybrid, okay. You know, I saw your video, you put on a pretty convincing performance, you know, with those like fake teeth and everything, like he had I probably would have got him too. He could have got me if he would have just like his eyes and the little boys, you know.
While he doesn't provide good answers, Max is at least pretty amicable. He has a chat with Mutahar, and in fairness, seems receptive to his criticism.
When you present a case well, when you tell them exactly the beginning, middle, and the potential end of the story, then they have to be actionable. I mean, they're very compelled to be actionable, more so than they were if your story is a little haphazard at the beginning. Right? That's the only real criticism I have to offer.
I appreciate the feedback, man. So actually, the whole reason why I made the group chat was because I needed this feedback. I needed to know what direction to go with this because it is such a huge case, and I'm already too close to it. Like, I already know like all the details. I don't know what other people need to know, and I just assumed everyone would go to the podcast.
This stream is also when we learn about a few concerning details about his plan. He reveals that he's contractually obligated to see the whole case through, but doesn't explain what that means. He also says he's in charge of making sure Spencer is financially taken care of and housed, which resulted in her moving in with him.
Why we're Patreon rather than a GoFundMe, that is because I'm contractually obligated to see this case through and make sure Spencer is taken care of. Spencer is moving over to me and
this would raise a lot of questions later down the line, but for now, just something to keep in mind. The final point worth mentioning is when Max invites a person named Spider. Spider brings up something that frankly should have been brought up long before the case got to this point, which is the statute of limitations. When Spider asks what the statute of limitations is on cases like this, both Spencer and Max admit they don't know the answer.
I don't personally know the statutes. Max, do you have an idea?
the statute of limitations, I personally don't care. I think Camden deserves to be behind bars no matter what.
I mean, this is a huge red flag considering we later learned he's been in contact with victims for 2.5 years, and it only gets more ridiculous from there. Max accuses Camden of preying on hundreds of kids before asserting that some of his cases should be within the statute of limitations. He consults ChatGPT for an answer, which only becomes more funny when Spider shows actual legal documents that detail the laws.
I think the statute of limitations, let me ask ChatGPT actually. Let's get this cool guy involved.
I have an article about this. There's one for 2018 and there's one for 2023, but the laws, at least the statute of limitation laws for both articles have not changed.
Send me that. You already sent it to me?
It's rather odd that it didn't get more attention, with the comments being a lot nicer to him than before. The live chat is also fairly warm to Max, largely composed of fans supportive of him and Spencer. However, even though the stream was not too badly received, the exact same complaint that had been plaguing Max since the beginning would come to cause trouble. It was still way too vague, with very little in the way of specific details being given, and nothing in the way of actual proof about Camden's fault. Things very quickly got worse. Max did a second stream about the topic a day later, titled "A New Survivor Speaks Out." As the title suggests, the stream starts off with an introduction to Michaela in her first proper public appearance. During this, Max and Spencer would jointly ask questions of her. Michaela explains that she went to school with Camden and met him when she was somewhere between 14 and 15. They began dating near the end of the school year, which is allegedly when he began assaulting her.
He would frequently force me to do sexual things with him that I didn't really want to do, but I didn't feel like I could tell him no, because we were together at the time. And I didn't realize that until like much later. There were a few things he did that was probably sexual assault, but being a kid and being, what I thought was in love, I didn't ever say anything.
Michaela claims he went on to threaten her and her family
Ты
and forced
дебилас?
her to escape to Kansas to interrupt her pregnancy. This stream is important because it confirms Michaela filed a police report and did a kit.
Especially with the fact that there was an actual pit with ties. Like, there was solid evidence, and they just completely ghosted her, the detectives.
Unfortunately, just like before, no actual evidence is provided whatsoever, leaving us with yet another unconfirmed story. Max justifies the withholding of evidence by stating it was necessary for the legal case against Camden. He also states he was waiting for this speculative, nebulous, hundreds of victims to contact him.
Hundreds of minors that we are trying to bring together, which was the point of reaching out to Charlie. Reminder that
Just like last time, Max took time to invite random people on stream and talk to them. It's during one of these chats that we find out Max had been working on this case for 2.5 years. Spencer claims to have contacted him after filing a report to the authorities. They had yet to file another report since then, with Spencer
Да
being
идиота!
unrealistic without more survivors.
When's the last time that any of this has been brought to any authorities, like FBI and police?
Probably about 3 years ago.
How long have you guys been sort of talking to mom and moms?
For like 2.5 years.
Дикой зло.
Sort of getting a case together, don't you think it'd be a better idea for the video to give it to the authorities again now that you're like all together and you can sort of go
Я разобрался ты.
I mean, we could have done that, but at the same time, with the track record that we've already seen, it just didn't really seem realistic without having more of us survivors to do this.
Things become more questionable and Max makes it seem like they're pursuing a lawsuit against both Camden and the authorities.
I don't want to wait for the bureaucracy of law enforcement to take their time. It's already been 7 years with multiple reports. That's ridiculous. And that's also why we're taking them to court as well. Because this is absurd.
There are no real details given on how he actually plans to approach it, mind you. He does, however, promise to release a video detailing the full timeline of events, helped by Spencer, even going as far as to say it's his #1 priority. Besides this, we also find out that the entire legal fund for the victim was being handled directly by Spencer.
Where's the donations going towards? Not that I doubt it won't be going to a good cause for survivors. It's going to the legal case. Spencer's handling all the money and sending it to the
3 секунды, Саня, че дал?
By now, the number of people actually taking this
Many
seriously
seconds.
get lower. The chat was supportive. The comments after were largely negative. This only worsened as people began to scrutinize Michaela's story, finding contradictions between the two versions presented. I mentioned before that Michaela's testimony was first read out as part of Spencer's podcast. While you can fill in some details without contradicting anything, Spencer claimed it was a miscarriage, while Michaela says it was deliberate.
She messaged the detective and was like, hey, you got me pregnant. The detectives never responded ever again. And she ended up miscarrying, so she didn't have that baby, and honestly, I think that she believes that that was for the best.
He kept threatening me and threatening to my family, so I up and moved to Kansas, where I met somebody and they abortion for that.
Without going into what this means for the actual story being told, this is one of the best examples of just how poorly conceived Max's way of doing things really was. It's sort of expected that if you're live streaming, you're gonna mess up and misspeak. This is fine when the stakes are low, but when the point is to deliver potentially damning testimony, you better make sure everything lines up, especially when your testimony is the only thing we can go off of. Needless to say, putting trauma victims in front of a mic on a live broadcast is not a good way to do that. This oversight was enough for Max to break out of his stupor, at least slightly. He pinned a comment under one of the videos promising to address some of the complaints. By then, his own subreddit was turning on him, questioning why Max would even bother instead of focusing on the timeline and actually getting a video out that proved that this cult even existed. So up until this point, there's something I've neglected to mention. Michaela is a single mother. If you'll recall, Max claimed all of the proceeds from his Patreon and the 3 videos would go to the victims. In spite of this, on November 19th, Michaela made a troubling post on Facebook begging for $20. This was so she could afford baby wipes, diapers, and eggs for her child. This opened up a lot of questions about how that money was being distributed. I mean, Max went out of his way to give Spencer money and a place to stay. We also know that Spencer herself was now in charge of the money, which suggests she was responsible for distributing it to the other victims. So for one of the key victims to be left financially destitute is not exactly a good look, no matter how you slice it. Then, a few days later, another bombshell dropped. Michaela's original police report was obtained and released on Kiwi Farms. It contradicted her on-stream account completely. It was filed in May of 2017 when she was 18 years old. There was a it, but police concluded there was no physical evidence to support the suspect was at the house the night of the incident. Now, to be clear, it does align closer with her account from the podcast, but there are still major discrepancies, such as 2 other alleged assaults going completely unmentioned. They are supposed to have occurred outside of a church in December of 2016.
In December of 2016, a week after my birthday, and then again on Christmas Eve, I met him in a church parking lot in the middle of the night under the pretenses of he wanted to talk about some things that were going on within the group. Both times he ended up humping me in that church parking lot.
With no real evidence provided to police, the investigation was suspended on July 13th, 2017. There was now verifiable proof that at least some of what Max presented was just outright false. This report was picked up by a streamer named Chud Logic, who was actually one of the first to make content criticizing Max's investigation. At this point, pretty much nothing Max released could be taken seriously without proof. This led a lot of people to start viewing his prior catalog with a critical lens. They were re-examining his previous attempts at hunting, looking for any discrepancies. The result was a now rather infamous Reddit post by Maximum Platypus 69 on December 17th. This guy goes in depth about how he believes that 3 of Max's most popular videos actually mistakes. In Cartoon Incorporated, he noticed the supposed Frozen 3 video uses a distinct font called Pixter Granular. Pixter Granular is a unique font type that appears in Max's later videos. It's not available by default in Windows or Adobe, which meant it had to be searched for and purchased. While not exactly bulletproof, the coincidence is rather interesting. He also points out the specific address of his My Mole video. I already covered these discrepancies earlier, but the third and most damning in this section is about imvu.exe. This is a story I left out earlier because it's genuinely fucking insane. In the video, Max discovers an account named Casey, whose only friend is Pablo Sunny. Max uses this to infer she was exploited by him. Max then claims to have reverse image searched her Naruto profile picture to find a YouTube channel. This YouTube channel has unlisted videos, which he somehow gained access to. He then discovers a video titled, "This is where you and killed me," depicting a bloody white sheet in the woods. Then he interpreted this as meaning she had either died or unalived herself. This led to an extremely awkward moment in a Discord Q&A where he claims Casey is actually alive.
Is there an update on Casey? Can you talk about how you got into the camera and how you found it?
I can't talk too much about Casey. I don't know what I can and can't say. I will tell you that, yes, she's okay. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, thank God. I didn't even know that. Holy shit. That's something I wanted to actually jump into with you about at some point. Thank God.
Let's stop talking about it. There's a lot I want to say about it, but I can't.
We'll respect her privacy too. We'll respect the secret for now. Thank you, Max.
Ay va, warmas.
Very relieving update. That was a haunting part of the video, I tell you.
To date, there is no real evidence that Casey ever actually existed. This post heightened tension felt within Max's community, with much of his audience feeling betrayed. Even though it wasn't definitive, there really shouldn't be this many questions. It led people to actively question if there was any truth in his current case. I mean, that's what happens when you so heavily fictionize your predator hunting videos. If all of that wasn't bad enough, it was about to get a whole lot worse. The following is a clip many overlook